Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Evolvepreneur Secret Show for entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Brian Silverthorne. My mission is to always help entrepreneurs make a difference in their businesses and to help them navigate the sometimes challenging worlds of startup, growth, or pivoting, a relaunch, as they call it. Today, we're going to dig deep with our guest and get the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. And our guest today is Travis Lachner, and Travis has got a pretty extensive profile here, but he works to help people adapt and evolve into a business, or his business adapted and evolved into a business of remote media production. And I'm anxious to hear about that. So, welcome to the show, Travis.
Thank you, Brian. Glad to be here, brother.
Good to have you. So, why don't you, since I stumbled over your introduction here, why don't you help me out and give me some background on who you are, what you've been doing, and how you got to where you are now.
Of course, there's been several twists and turns along the journey. But in sum, my most recent role has become a multimedia producer. So helping people produce ideas and bring them to reality. Sometimes it's live stream, sometimes it's podcast, or just a YouTube or video series. There's a creator or creative vein inside of all of us. And what we've really done on the business side and personal side is really zero in on how can we leverage that creativity and plug it back into your business. So on the surface, it very much looks like a content marketing agency. We produce shows and podcasts and micro content for social media. But under the hood, what we're really focusing on is helping entrepreneurs minimize their total input for content creation and maximize their total output. And that's what we've just been doubling down on, really focusing on situations like this, where there's so much mileage in this podcast and these conversations. We help other companies and businesses tap into that strategy, tap into those channels, and use it as viable lead generation and business development.
Good. Well, I've always been a big fan of doing as little as
Yeah.
possible for maximum results. So
Yes.
if you have the ability to help folks with that's great. So you did a little changing in your career. So what inspired you to go in this direction?
Yeah, so I think a big key piece of this transition was something uh, I call my COVID clarity. It was during the pandemic when many people were faced with a pivot of some sort, whether it was by choice or not. Many people were faced with a decision, so myself included. So prior to the pandemic, I was operating as a creative director in a marketing agency. So helping with any campaign, with any company of any size in any medium, from billboards to email to little print flyers, just the full spectrum. And what I had noticed and discovered during our time there was that content marketing was typically the most valuable channel that companies were seeing success in. However, there was a void in how to get to that content. So there was kind of this middle class void of, if you went on the higher end of the spectrum with like these production studios from LA and New York, and it was like six figures and 6 weeks to even just like talk to somebody. And you're like, okay, well, that's not feasible. And then you would go to the other end of the spectrum and you would have like editors like hired from Fiverr, from like international countries, very like cost effective, but ultimately you end up having to pay a lot in revisions, in time, and communication. So there was this middle class void of good content that could be produced efficiently and effectively. So that's what we really zeroed in on. And I started dabbling myself how to produce a podcast, start slicing it into micro content, and then plug it into whatever your front end digital or social strategy is. So that was the key piece, was seeing that void of middle class like content creation, and there weren't really good options out there for somebody to just do it for you. So that's where we stepped in, and just created an end-to-end offering for those key individuals that understand the value of content but don't quite have the time to invest into it. That's who we're targeting, and that's who we're helping very vividly and specifically. So polar opposite of my prior adventure where we helped anybody with anything in any channel. Now it's vividly clear. Here's what we do: produce a weekly show, daily content, and then get it rocking and rolling on your social media every single day.
Got it. So you you mentioned a couple of characteristics of your ideal client there. Somebody that understands it but doesn't have the time and understands the benefit of it.
Yep.
Any other characteristics of an ideal client for you?
So what we're discovering with this strategy is it's very effective for B2B or any type of high level business development or relationship development. So a lot of people, when they think of podcasts, they think of this very broad reach approach of, I'm going to go get millions of downloads and have thousands of fans and everybody listening. And sure, that's great for the few people that can really pull that off. What we've done is take that same approach and bring it to a very specific business or individual. So once we understand who their ideal client is, as well, we build the show, the content, and all of the social strategy around surrounding those target clients. So anybody that only needs a few key relationships to move the needle in their business, that's who we build this system for. If you need to sell 10,000 things of some like lipstick or like consumer products, like there's better strategies. Go to Instagram and partner with the Kardashians or something. But for folks that really want high level business development, where it's really hard to knock on those doors and build those relationships, we've discovered that a strategy like this makes it virtually frictionless to reach those high-level executives and VPs and all these people that are typically impossible to reach with cold outreach. Suddenly, once you're reaching out to them with value and maybe a little bit of ego bait as well, of like, hey, we'd love to have you featured on our Agriculture All-Stars podcast. Like, super simple, but like if you're a VP of agriculture at some company, there's a high probability you probably are going to say yes to that conversation. So that's who we plug into, is those people that know who their client is on the business side. And it's just difficult to reach them. And we've discovered it's pretty much industry agnostic. But for the right people, those B2B relationships are perfect for this model.
Well, great. So part of what you do is help your clients develop a strategy for reaching out to the right folks, so they're fishing in the right pond.
Yep.
So how do those people that need your services or want your services find you?
I am super, super grateful that my whole world has switched to like 100% inbound. Inbound relationships, people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, on social media, email, and then referrals. Just natural referrals from our existing clients, saying, hey, here's another one. So I actually haven't even cranked up the dial as far as like outbound sales, like smile and dial. And it's sort of, in a way, kind of poetic to the strategy we're producing, because what I'm doing to earn these clients is the same thing we do for them. So it becomes very easy in the conversation of if anybody's doubting, like, well, does this work? Is this going to be here? And 90% of the time I can just ask or say, well, where did you hear me? Where did we start this conversation? And it's almost, well, I saw you on LinkedIn for a little while, and then I listened to one of the episodes of the podcast, and then now here we are. So yeah, I love that you mentioned the fishing in the right pool, because that's exactly how I've kind of thrown it in the analogy spectrum. Some people want to go and cast a net, go net fishing, and just try to catch as much as they can and everything. And sure, in the right context, that's great. Consumer goods and anything that you have to sell thousands of. But for B2B and high level biz dev, it's much more of a spear fishing approach or whale hunting type of approach. You can't just go cast the net as wide as you want and just catch anything. It has to be vividly targeted and specific and strategic to accomplish that. So very much love that you threw that analogy in there, because for the right people, it really is a viable strategy to be so specifically targeted rather than just going too wide. You end up just diluting your efforts, and it doesn't do much for anybody.
Right. Yeah. So I'm assuming you're fishing in the right pond, but you got more than one line in the water. So which one of those lines is catching the most fish for you?
So if we're talking like channels
Yeah.
and strategies, LinkedIn has been a huge game changer for my world. Obviously, it's just the mentality of people in LinkedIn is a bit more business oriented. So having a B2B offering was a very big win for our world. So LinkedIn organic content has been for sure the biggest game changer in my world.
Good. So they're bringing you the most business consistent.
Yep. As of right now, that's for sure the most reliable. We're still exploring other channels, always dabbling. But for high level biz dev and the right people we're trying to look for, LinkedIn has been the best, both for prospecting and for that inbound portion of where you can kind of start magnetically pulling people towards you. So even
Right.
if you're not directly getting the attention of that client or directly connecting with them, it's very likely that people in their network or third party or third degree connections are interacting. So you just get sprinkled on their radar a little more frequently until suddenly the right message hits them at the right moment, and then you're on another call. And it's
Cool.
just been absolute game changer for my world to finally listen to Gary Vee and start posting on LinkedIn.
Well, good for you. If you find one that works, you got to milk it,
Yep.
until it runs dry and hope it never runs dry.
Amen.
So, I mean, you're doing things for people to help them grow their businesses and achieve certain revenue goals, I would imagine. So, do you have revenue goals for your business, say over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so I think we've got a nice little sweet spot where I'm in very much like lean startup mentality. I don't need to go start a company with 10,000 employees. Like that's that sounds like an anxiety attack like waiting to happen. So our goals are staying very lean with a single digit team, and serving about 10 clients at full service is about where our happy spot and like profitable plateau is. So I think that revenue puts us at a little under a 1 mil a year. So that puts us at everybody that's involved is at a 6-figure salary. And then we have enough healthy profit to grow and invest and kind of look into bigger picture venues and assets to invest in on the company and business level. But no, very modestly profitable is our goal. Not trying to just hit revenue for no reason, because so much of that growth creates more money, more problems. So I've heard it goes, and that just seems like a really nice sweet spot to take care of a core group of individuals just rocking and rolling full time, and then I don't have to have the stress of like scaling, growing pains of scaling and all of the HR and admin, and like there's so many other things that come along with that, that I've sort of dialed it down now on this entrepreneurial journey to find a sweet spot of profitability without all of that heart attack level anxiety attached to like always growing. So yeah, would love to just kind of at least put a spotlight on, there are so many brilliant, happy, successful people that don't make tens of millions. Like you can have 6 and 7 figure like revenue and take care of like a good amount of people very well. So that's where I've started to find my sweet spot, is the kind of the small family doing very well as the ideal scenario for us.
Well, good. Yeah, if you're making enough money to take care of yourself and your people, and you can keep your business operating and growing it at a rate that makes total sense to you, then you're right. You may not want to make any changes immediately that's gonna rock the boat.
Yeah.
And add more complications. So, in your effort to achieve that revenue goal, is there a roadblock of some sort that you got to sneak around or jump over to get there?
This guy right here. No, I think my own mental hurdles and mental limitations have continuously over and over and over just been sort of the glass ceiling of ourself to continually shatter. I've been doing it since like middle school. That my first goal was like I wanted to produce an album and produce music, and it was always like, oh, you're not worthy, you never read music, you never learned it. And then by the end of high school, I had released a fully self-produced album. And it did great. It was back in like the MySpace era, MySpace days. And then I did it again with hockey. Always thought I was too small. Always didn't have like the size or the stature or the look for it. But made it all the way to college hockey and played all the way up through there was the end of the line for me. And then again with entrepreneurial visit, my first business, thought like I wanted to build a website. How do people do this? How do they, like, there's no way I'm capable of it. 2 years later, built and sold my first business. So I think that's where I'm at again. This stage is like, oh, well, you're not one of them that runs those multi-million-dollar companies, so you won't hit those numbers. So it's just getting over those, breaking through the next layer of that ceiling, so I can at least this time recognize that I've been here before and that it's breakable. But that seems to be the consistent barrier, is our own self-value and our own worth often has to that has to come first before other people and other businesses see it and buy into it. So that's probably the most realistic, is finally just turning on that sales confidence and getting them through the finish line.
Well, good. Well, you certainly have a history that you can look back on. If you're doubting yourself, you say, well, I made it here, I made it here, I made it here. And they're all pretty diverse endeavors. So if you're hanging in there with it, I was a hockey player way back in the day, and I didn't like small guys because they were way too fast for me. But I played with many that were very good at what they did. They were fleet of feet on skates.
Oh, love it. A
lot of times that doesn't matter. So you've been doing this for a while. You've got things up and running. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever given one of your clients?
Oh, wow. This one is a little counterintuitive, but it's an easy win. And it is share the journey. Share the journey. Whatever journey you are on, entrepreneurially or career-wise, even if you're not running a business or starting a business, career-wise, what I've discovered and what has been really effective for my own growth has been sharing little snippets of your journey along the way. So in LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube or whatever your desired social platform or community avenue is, capture everything you're doing. Even if you're not sharing it and publicizing it and get an editor, at least start capturing moments of what you're doing, pictures, little bit of videos here and there. And what I've discovered is this is one of the most effective ways to build rapport and people that are attached to you as an individual for life, because they're here for the journey and they remember 18 months ago when you went to that conference and you were struggling and you weren't doing well. Well, now 18 months later and you're posting, hey, we finally closed like those 3 clients we've been trying to get and it's been amazing. There's a whole nother level of connection when you've been there on that journey. And that was a piece of the puzzle that I was always missing. I had this very perfectionist producer type of mentality of like, only show the highlight reels, only show the perfectly edited video. If you are going to post content, make sure it's very professional and in one of these 3 pillars. And that stuff's great for your foundational, just baseline of content. Yes, great. Thumbs up. But what's really glues people and pulls them into your world and your story is those little pictures with the dog at the beach, and those challenges of when you finally went to a trade show and a conference and got to meet everybody. That's what people love seeing because it's human. That's the real part of that journey. And I started doing that when I went through that pandemic struggle of like kind of hitting the reset button. And now I'm so grateful for it because now there's people that have been with me that whole duration and have a whole nother level of connection, seeing you grow on that journey. And that is a key piece that I think a lot of people are missing. And it's so easy to tap into. Just any moment you get to just share or capture or document the journey, do so. And I guarantee you'll find other people out there that resonate with it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice because it everybody has their own story and their own journey, and there's ups and downs in every one of them. And if people can take a look and say, hey, that person has experienced similar things to what I have, and at both ends of the spectrum.
Yep.
So it helps you understand that you're not there alone. So I think that's a great piece of advice. So with all the stuff that you got going on, are you doing all of this stuff on multiple platforms, or how do you keep track of everything technology wise?
Yeah, so technology wise, we've got a similar mentality. I've over invested in like the shiny toy syndrome of getting all the software and extensions and apps, and this one plugs into that one. So we've gone with a much more lean approach. So we use Monday for task management and process management, and then Google Drive, good old classic Google Drive, for just about everything else. Word docs and spreadsheets control a lot of our scheduling, our productions, our assets, our content scheduling. So as far as software, those are our 2 key pieces. And then when it comes to the creative side, the production, this is a key piece that I think has crafted part of our competitive advantage, is we've really focused on media engineering and answering that same question earlier. How can we get the minimum amount of input from somebody and turn it into the maximum amount of output? So through repurposing systems, Adobe Premiere, video editing templates, caption templates, branding and design templates, all of that type of technological stuff reduces the friction from creative idea to final publishing. So that's where we've invested a lot of our technology and automation and everything in that end, is between that gap of when it's after it's recorded and before it's posted and published. There's a lot of technological friction that can go on there. So that's where we've really just taken things to a whole nother level as far as automated media management, repurposing, and we've even stepped into recently, we're having AI, artificial intelligence, read through all of our video footage and do some of our video editing and sourcing through clips, like hundreds and hundreds of videos worth of material. So that's another high efficiency thing that is very, very early stage, But a lot of video editors and graphic designers are going to be very worried about in the coming years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just now in the early stages of dabbling with some of the robots taking over in those roles. But as of right now, that's our approach, is to stay as lean as possible from the tech and software side. And when we do implement it, it's something that is repeatable or automated, so that it very much has that ROI just baked into it.
Right. Right. Well, sounds like you got a handle on most things. That's good. You just got to keep an eye on it. Make sure the results are the ones that are intended.
Yep.
Yep. So we're getting on toward the end here. Have you got any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the biggest piece for me, just as an open-ended advice or general guidance, uh, the piece about sharing the journey earlier was very crucial to just dabble in general. So at any point, just share your journey regardless. But there's an even more crucial point that I think is very powerful, not only in business, but in life, in understanding that, like, that self-actualization. Is this what I'm here for? And it was finding your lane as a creator. I'm very confident that every individual that is listening to this, any person, is a creator. Whether they call themselves one is a whole nother a whole nother challenge. But I can absolutely guarantee that you are a creator, and the challenge is finding your lane. So very similar to like style or fashion, I couldn't just wear your shirt and it looks good on you, it looks great, but suddenly when I wear it, it doesn't feel the same. It's not the same. And like a lot of people do that with like creating. Oh, I saw this guy do he was a good YouTuber, so I tried to make YouTube videos and I just sucked. It wasn't my thing. Well, maybe that's because that wasn't your lane. If you dabbled in live streaming, maybe you discovered you loved the audience feedback and engagement and improvising and being a little more witty and clever and having fun with people in the chat, versus a YouTuber is very focused. They've got pages of notes and the lights up in the corner and they're on the 15th take of their video. You got to find your lane. And that's what really helped me lean into being a creator, was finally finding my lane. I had dabbled in other avenues and it just didn't quite sit right. So for those people that are listening and haven't quite connected the dots on what their lane is, continue experimenting and try at least one episode or one video or anything of everything is the ultimate goal. And you might discover maybe short form poetry or like text posts or like writing like that is your lane. And that's a key piece that I think so many people are missing. But when I see it click, either for myself or for clients, and they finally find like, oh, this is it, that's the moment I want people to discover. So keep dabbling, try something new. If you've already tried something and you don't vibe with it, ask yourself why. Think of why you didn't enjoy the podcast format or this live stream format, and try something different. And I guarantee once you find which lane is yours, it will click. It will ignite something in you that you haven't felt in a long while. And that is where sustainable motivation and those people that build empires out here, that's where it comes from. That internal fuel and motivation when it finally clicks.
Excellent. Two fine 3-word pieces of advice: share your journey and find your lane.
Yes,
So
there you go.
even I can remember that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good advice. Listen, you've been a great guest. You got a lot of energy that I enjoy, and enthusiasm. Obviously, you're attached very strongly to the work that you do and the results that you produce for your clients. So that's good to see. So I really thank you for taking the time.
Likewise, thank you so much, Brian. Super grateful for any opportunity to amplify this message out here.